Hi, welcome into our office. I know that it's your first time. My name is Shannon Keough. I'm going to be the social worker who's talking with you today.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And what's your name?
My name's Anne.
It's nice to meet you, Anne.
Nice to meet you.
How was getting over here? How's the weather out there?
It's a little rainy, but it's not too bad. I mean, I expect it to be rainy, so.
It happens sometimes in Seattle.
Yeah, the way Seattle is.
So we're just going to spend, kind of just to give you an idea of what today is going to be like, we're just going to spend some time kind of talking about what brought you in. We're going to go into different coping strategies that you've utilized thus far, and then we're going to kind of end our time together talking about different strategies that you can use going forward that can hopefully sort of alleviate some of the feelings that you're having, which I'll ask you to elaborate on here in a minute. I had the chance to kind of look over the file that was sent from a previous worker, and so I was able to see, at least since you were referred here, kind of a little bit about what's going on. But why don't you tell me, sort of in your own words, what you're feeling like, kind of what's brought you in today.
Right. I've just been feeling kind of anxious. I have a daughter who went to school last fall, and I had these feelings before she left, and I thought maybe it was just anticipation of her leaving, and I've had them even before she went to college, but then they got pretty bad when she left. Just feelings of anxiety, just having problems sleeping, just constantly. I mean, I'm married as well, and I think about my husband, and when I'm not with them, just kind of worrying about if they're okay. Sometimes when I really get anxious about it, I can even feel pains in my chest. I mean, I've never gone to the hospital or anything about it, but that's kind of what I've been going through for a while now.
It sounds to me like anxiety is something that really plays into sort of a lot of the events that go on in your daily life and with sort of your loved ones. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah. I tend to feel anxious, and I feel kind of weird about it because I feel like I'm anxious about stuff that maybe I shouldn't be anxious about.
And what makes you feel that way?
Well, it's not like somebody got hurt or had a car accident or anything where you would naturally feel anxious. It's just a lot of worry that maybe doesn't need to happen, and it's just kind of debilitating with my daughter being in college and her not being around and me not knowing where she is and if she's safe. It's all the time because she's gone.
So I've heard you talk a little bit about your kind of close immediate family. Can you tell me a little bit more about your relationship with them, your husband and your daughter?
We have a good relationship, I think. Normal friction and fighting, but nothing that's. I think our relationships are pretty healthy with both my daughter and my husband.
Well, although the anxiety and the worry that it sounds like you're feeling sound like a real challenge. It sounds like you really love and care about your family, so at least it sounds like to me that that's at least coming from a place of really like love and devotion to your family. So at least that's something to think about, even though that really can be a pretty big challenge for you from what I'm hearing. How long have you been kind of experiencing these feelings of anxiety?
Probably for a couple of years. It got a lot worse when my daughter went to college last fall. And that's when I started thinking, oh, I probably maybe need to get some help. And I thought, well, I'll just wait a few months. It's new and I have to get used to it. But it isn't really better. It just almost gets worse. So that's when I was kind of getting concerned. And my husband thought, maybe I should seek some help too, because it just kind of becomes debilitating sometimes for me.
So you're saying that things seem to really escalate when your daughter went to college. Could you kind of like pinpoint exactly maybe what that was that changed from when she was kind of home and with you all the time to when she was in college, sort of what maybe escalated those kind of worrisome feelings that you were having?
You mean what in my life maybe escalated it?
Mhm.
Well, I think her going, I mean, I'm just kind of guessing, but I think, well, that was the big change with her going away. I mean, I always, for a couple of years have I've always been a little uncomfortable with my loved ones and worrying, but I think her going to school made it a lot worse. I used to feel the same kind of feelings when the job my husband used to have, he would travel. And so I would kind of have those feelings with that. And then he changed jobs and he was around more. And so then I didn't feel it as much because he wasn't gone overnight and traveling for weeks at a time. But I think her going to school kind of brought some of that back again. And, and I kind of remembered my old feelings when my husband used to travel, and that same kind of worry, and which kind of bleeds into me not sleeping well. And like I said, sometimes I get chest pains, and it doesn't seem normal.
Now, has besides, I've just heard you really talk about mostly your husband and your daughter. Had you ever had sort of these feelings about any other loved ones in your life, maybe in the past?
Um, I don't know if I had those feelings, but just to give you some background, my father left our family. I mean, I have a brother and two sisters, and he left our family when I was like 8. And we never saw him again. So, and I was 8, so I remember him and had some kind of relationship with him. I mean, it wasn't super great, but it was a relationship. So, and then my mom just coped, but then she did remarry when I was like 11, and then so then I had a stepdad, and he was really great stepdad. But then unfortunately he died when I was 13 and a half. So that's kind of, I mean, I'm close to my siblings and my mom, just like I am to my husband and my daughter. I think pretty much healthy relationships. But yeah, my dad did leave us, and then my stepdad passed away when I was, before I was even in high school. Both of those things happened.
Sounds like you had to kind of learn to cope with a lot of pretty serious loss at such a young age.
Yeah, it was really hard when my real father left, because you did feel kind of abandoned. What did I do wrong? I mean, my two younger siblings, I don't know that they really understood it because they were younger. Plus, because I was 8, I could see that my mom was super sad, which was hard. It was hard to see as an 8-year-old. But yeah, I mean, you feel kind of crummy, and then it was hard. You open up to my stepdad, and then he passes away, so that was super hard too. So
I can imagine that might just give you sort of a crippling feeling, because there isn't in the loss of both your father and your stepfather, there wasn't really anything concrete that you could do for yourself or for your mother probably in that time.
no, I mean, it was just kind of deal with the reality, right? I mean, when my stepfather passed away, I mean, he did get sick, so we knew he was going to pass away, and so it was super hard, but I guess you had time to say bye. But with my dad, I mean, he was just gone, so that was hard in a completely different way. But, I never thought of it, but you're right. I mean, it kind of is, it is a lot to deal with when you're pretty young, so.
Well, thank you for sharing that with me. I know that's probably something that's really hard to bring up and talk about, even though some of it was such a long time ago, and then also for sharing with me some of the more difficult feelings that you've been having in just the last couple of years. I appreciate you just taking the time to sort of explain to me kind of where you were coming from. And now, am I the first person that professional that you've really spoken in depth with?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've talked to friends and, not my mom, but, because she's older now, but friends. But yeah, the first professional, except the people that you got the file from,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't have any relationship. So I thought it might be good to find somebody to kind of have a relationship with and maybe work through, because I just feel like the way I feel now, it's not really I'm not really functioning
Mm-hmm.
like an adult like I should be, and I think it could just get worse because it's not getting better. So
Mm-hmm. Well, I first want to commend you just on taking the time to come down here and recognize that maybe you did need a little bit of extra help. Because that's something that most people run across at some point in their life. And I think that although you've mentioned a few times you feel like the way you're feeling isn't normal and you feel like you're not functioning as an adult, making the decision to come and get some resources and maybe receive a little bit of help, I think is probably one of the most adult decisions that you could make for yourself and for your family. So I think that that's something maybe to keep in mind even throughout this whole process, as things may be a little bit challenging. It also sounds to me throughout the time you've been speaking that you have a really good relationship, especially with your husband and with your daughter, and you really care about both of them, and it sounds like they care about you as well, which is probably part of the reason why some of this worry is kind of overtaking you in certain moments. And there are a lot of people who don't have such a strong support and family unit. And I can tell you really value and appreciate that. So I'm really glad that that's something that you have in your life, that even though it seems to be sort of part of some of the challenges you've had, it also is one of your greatest attributes and strengths that I feel like you're able to bring into the situation as well. Um, so up until this point, how have there been any ways that you've tried to cope with some of these feelings you've had, or and if there are, could you tell me about those?
um well, I did try, well, for my sleeping, which I know is not really a solution. I've tried to like take stuff that might help me kind of sleep and not worry, Benadryl or some sort of um, Tylenol PM, or just something that kind of knocks me out so I can sleep, because I know when I don't sleep, then that makes everything worse because I'm exhausted. But I've also tried to, I tried to do like just me go somewhere with a girlfriend and do something, just to do like a weekend, girl weekend or something. So, I mean, I know, like I told you, I tend to get anxious when people leave, but I thought, maybe I would leave, take my mind off it, and go somewhere else. So I've tried to do that a couple times, and like the first time I ended up coming back the next day because I don't know, I just didn't feel it. I still felt kind of worried, even though I was the one that left. So I really wasn't having that good a time. And then I did it again, and I ended up staying the whole weekend. But really, a lot of the time, my mind was back at home, and what's my husband doing, and what's going on, and that sort of thing. So I did it, but it didn't make me feel like, oh, well, I'm getting better and I'm handling things. It was I just felt kind of crummy when I was gone.
Mm-hmm. So you felt even though you were maybe physically present in those times with your girlfriends, you weren't necessarily mentally present. Your mind was maybe back, wondering about your husband and worrying about your daughter. Is that sound
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay. Well, the fact that you had thought of something and decided to kind of go forth and try to get your mind off it and try a strategy to maybe try and help is a great step. Just even taking that step is, for most people, sort of the hardest part. So I really applaud you that you were able to do that before you had even reached out and spoken to anyone. So that's wonderful. Um, so Now I think we'll talk a little bit about maybe some strategies just from having heard what you had to say that I sort of thought of, maybe jotted down a couple of notes. And as I'm going through these, please let me know your thoughts. I don't want to be implementing a strategy that you're not comfortable with, that you don't feel like is going to be effective, because this whole plan is for you. So feel free to kind of explain and sort of explore your thoughts, and we can talk about them together. So you talked a lot about feeling like your mind was kind of always full. It sounded to me like it was always racing. You were kind of full of worry, and I thought maybe practicing meditation could be sort of a useful time to kind of try and train yourself to sort of empty your mind, and not even just that, but to have a set time 2 or 3 times each week where you're taking time just to think, not think, or to take the time to sort of focus more on yourself, because it sounds like you're a mother and a wife who really care so much about the people in their life, and maybe sometimes you don't always get to get some of that focus on yourself that everyone needs. It's important no matter how good of a wife or a mother that you are. So I thought maybe 2 to 3 times a week. There's a certain there's these tapes that we actually have in the office that they just kind of talk you through the meditation practices, and we've had other people who've come through here and felt feelings of anxiety, some similar and some different to yours, that have found meditation to be really helpful.
Okay, I'm totally willing to try that.
Okay. And then the other thing that that I really heard you speak about for a time was some of the experiences you've had throughout your childhood. What with losing 2 father figures in very different ways, but still kind of coping with that loss. And I think that studies have shown, and some of the research that I've done, that that anxiety that children can feel from different traumas that they've experienced, when it hasn't really been discussed, can really sort of transform into adulthood anxiety, which looks a lot different than anxiety that children experience, but is still very real and significant, and as you've experienced, really has an impact on who you are and how you function in your daily life. So I think maybe even just once a week, twice a week, whatever could work with your schedule, maybe just sitting down and getting the opportunity just to be able to speak about your experiences, and have someone who's non-biased just listen to you and give you an opportunity maybe to sort of process that experience that you had, because it sounds to me like you were so young that you just were kind of trying to hold yourself together, and you didn't really have a chance to really deal with that as you were trying to, it sounds like, take care of everybody else in your family. Is that something that you feel like you could be comfortable with?
Sure. Would that be with you? Is that what you mean?
That could either be with me, if that's something that you'd be more comfortable with, or I could refer you out. So that's going to be whatever you're comfortable with. And we can spend more time discussing that to figure out sort of what's going to work best for you.
Okay.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you coming in today and taking the time to speak with me. And I look forward to our potential work together in the future.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me.